Video. Hello. Welcome to the Premiere Prep. Well, we've been calling it the podcast, but technically it's Premiere Prep Live because we don't have a proper RSS feed or anything like that yet. But that is some stuff in the works. I'm your host, Micah Pendleton, and I'm joined again by Jesse Frank, filmmaker extraordinaire, video producer, wedding videographer.
Yes, I am all of those things and much, much more.
Well, he's at least all of those things.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So we are more properly set up this week. We have camera 1, camera 2, hey, and camera 3. How's it going? So we're going to go back to camera 1, but we actually have multiple cameras this week as we wanted last week. We just ran out of time. And we've got some proper graphics and everything going on. So this should be
about this great lighting.
Yeah, the great lighting. We have the Aperture 120D, correct?
Actually, no, this is the Canon TV Boltzmann 55 watt.
Oh, okay. That's right. Yeah, your apertures.
Yeah, I never did get the with the 120D.
That's right. Which one did you get?
I got the 300D.
Oh, okay.
Yep, the original 300D.
Gotcha.
That's what I've got.
All right. Well, let's get on into it. So our first segment is in the news. We're running this just like we did last week. And the first piece, if I can bring up my notes here, I need to be printing these out or getting a second monitor, but this little stand is a lot too small. Yes, so Christopher Nolan and Jordan Peele, they are making an Imax camera together. That was pretty cool to hear. I don't know how, oh man, how am I going to, okay, so you guys are going to see OBS for just a second here. And then,
Hi.
There we go.
Hi, OBS. Bye, OBS.
Nope. Okay. There we go. So Christopher Nolan and Jordan Peele are teaming up to make an IMAX camera. I'm very curious as to what this might be. My initial reaction was, is this going to be a digital camera? Maybe the first digital IMAX camera? But then I thought about it for a second. I'm like, no, Jordan Peele and Christopher Nolan would not even come close to touching a digital camera.
No, their styles, especially Christopher Nolan.
Oh yeah,
Particularly him. I mean, Jordan Peele, I don't know what he shot Get Out on. That's really the only movie that I've seen by him, which is very good. But I don't have any idea what he shot that on.
I pretty much only know Jordan Peele from Key and Peele. I never watched any of his movies. But that dude is one heck of a comedian, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, next piece in the news. My phone will stop shutting off. Yeah, this one was interesting. I don't have the article pulled up here. I meant to do that earlier. But the FCC is requiring broadcasts to state government affiliation. So if you are being sponsored by a foreign entity in some kind of a special broadcast, you're now required to state that before the show happens, I think. I'm not sure exactly of all the details, but it was just really interesting to see, especially with everything going on in the news and stuff like that, that the FCC came out with this ruling, and it will make it a lot easier for somebody to tell, oh, that's being sponsored by, X foreign government. We'll keep any name out of here. But I think it was kind of a good move. We'll just see how it gets implemented. And having the history I do in broadcast, it's I think it's good to see. But that was just something kind of note. But it kind of, I don't know if you remember the old Robin Williams joke. I wish politicians would wear a suit like a NASCAR driver so we could tell who sponsors them.
Okay.
We're not going to get political on this, but I thought that was funny. And this is kind of like an equivalent, essentially, for broadcast television. I thought it was kind of funny. All right. And the last piece of news is the BS1H got approved as an officially supported, I guess, certified. Yeah, a certified camera for Netflix productions. The BS1H, I mean, you said it was basically an S1H in the box. I mean, that's the name.
That is exactly what it is.
Yep, and in a box form factor. And that's really cool to see because I'm just going to jump out of this article and let's just talk about this. The BS1H is an amazing camera. We already know that. Let me jump out of here. Netflix. I am a little tired of Netflix having their little certified camera thing. Why does it matter? The BS1H and the S5, both full frame, very similar specs. They both shoot vlog. I mean, essentially what you're getting out of them is the same. And the S1H. I mean, for goodness sakes, it's the same camera, but in a box. And I don't believe the S1H is approved by Netflix.
It actually is.
Okay, the S1H
Yes,
is.
the S1H
I was trying to remember
is.
which one.
The S1 and the S5, which is this camera right here, not approved.
Oh, okay. So my whole thing with the whole Netflix approval thing, though, is just it's so stupid. I don't know. From what I've seen, it hasn't been made clear as to exactly why it would be a certified or not certified camera, because when it comes down to it, the ones that are approved versus the ones I don't approve can do basically the same thing. They have very similar specs and everything. So to me, it just does not make sense. I don't know how you feel about this.
Well, the main thing that was Netflix's, I think, big issue for a while is because Arri Alexa was shooting most of the films that were shot on Arri Alexa were not 4K.
Mm-hmm.
They were, in fact, either 2K or 1080p, but with that being said, it was a great looking 2K 1080p image.
Yes.
I thought that was one of the reasons why they started setting those standards, and then Arri Alexa actually came out with, I don't know all the different models of Arri Alexa, but they started coming out with 4K cameras.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really know why there are some that are approved. And I mean, okay, no, there's obvious ones that I would exclude from, let's say if you were to make a film, there's a number of cameras that I would highly recommend to do that. Now, would I recommend a T3i? No. Why? Because, well, first of all, it's an old camera. It was the first camera that I started on, but
that was my first DSLR.
Yeah, but like, there's so many more things that are out there now. No, don't get me wrong, you can still get a great image out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think you still can, but there's so much better offerings now that yet that cinema level of quality.
Yes, and but that's my thing. That's kind of my whole argument with this. For Netflix, it feels more like they're just trying to count the numbers. Like they're trying to ensure that you've got 4K. They're trying to ensure that you've got a certain bit rate and stuff like that. That's the way it appears to me. But in the end, half of their library is older than digital video, you know? And like you said, quality, maintaining a certain level of quality, vet the film. Oh, I think I was in black. But vet the film, you know? Okay, yeah. We've still got all of our cameras. I don't know why I was seeing black there for a second. But anyway, but vet the film and see if it's up to your level of quality. What's the harm in that?
I mean, if you shoot a really good movie at 1080p that's color graded well, that's lit very well. I mean, lighting is most of the problem.
Oh yeah.
Like if you look at it, or and audio. I mean, you can get.
Why are there not Netflix approved lights?
Yeah, why are there not Netflix approved? You know, microphones, audio recorders. You
Yeah.
know, like all of these different things. I mean, it is a really good argument to be had.
Yeah, and for me, it's just, you know, I can see a minimum resolution. Like if you say nothing smaller than 1080p or 2K even, you know, you could just simply say 2K to keep it more cinema style.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
To have a minimum of like minimum resolution or basically just minimum standards.
Yeah, like no one's going to shoot in 720p.
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
Yeah. Nobody is going to shoot in 720p. And if you are, I'm kind of curious why.
Well, I mean, nothing against people. I mean, we started when we started our weddings. We were shooting at 480p.
Yeah.
That's all that was available.
Yeah.
It was the Canon XL2.
Yeah.
Shooting to mini DV tapes. That's what it was.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything else. And then the 5D Mark III came out and was like, holy crap, we can actually make something that looks great.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I mean, it's true, but again, we can move on. But my final point about this is, I understand vetting a film, making sure that it's high enough quality. I understand having minimum specs in order to have your film uploaded and accepted by Netflix. But the whole approved camera thing is just stupid. My rant's over. I know it's not that big of a deal. If you're somebody who's shooting something that's going to get on Netflix anyway, you probably don't care because you'll just be like, oh, yeah, we'll pull out the old Ursa Mini G2 from the closet. We've had it in there for a little while. You know, I mean, like, but for any of us who really want to try to make a good indie, low budget film, it's still one of those things where it's like, okay, well, now I've got to buy a specific camera in order to make my project happen and get it onto Netflix.
Yeah, you don't need to do that.
But I don't know, will they still accept it if I've made it anyway and then I submit it for approval?
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I don't either. But that's neither here nor there. Okay, so moving on. I think that is everything for in the news, and we're going. Yes, it is. We're going to move on to Tech Talk. So our Tech Talk today is high frame rates, shooting high frame rates, delivering them, watching them, and the mindset that surrounds it. So we, of course, have the GH6 in-house. We actually just did an unboxing video. If you haven't seen the unboxing video yet, go watch it. Okay, but if you haven't seen the unboxing video, we do kind of cover how it compares body-wise to the GH5S. It's very interesting, some of the things they have kept, some of the things they've gotten rid of, everything like that. So definitely go watch the unboxing video. But it kind of got us talking because the GH6 can shoot 4K at 120 FPS, which is, it got us talking. And you had a good point. It's like the frame rate war has kind of been like one of the least focused on with a lot of camera upgrades. You know, it's been log, it's been, you know, higher bit rates, it's been all kinds of stuff like that, but it hasn't really been higher frame rate. You know, we've seen 60p become pretty much standard with 4K shooting cameras within the last couple of years. Pretty much ever since, I would say, since the Pocket 4K came out. That was kind of the one that everybody said, okay, now we have to include 4K at 60p. That's my perspective on it. But you had a couple additional points. What were some of those?
Well, the main thing for me, at least, is I think everybody loves slow motion. Mm-hmm. And having the higher frame rate...
Especially John Woo.
Oh, yeah. I mean, dear, my goodness. I mean, have you seen... He did Mission Impossible too, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, my gosh. I don't know why they got him to do that. But the idea of having, you know, oh, we got 1080p. Oh, now it's 2K. Oh, now it's 3K, 4K. This can do 5.7K, and now you have 6K S1H, and now there's the 8K red helium and the 12K Blackmagic Ursa. Like, this is all well and good, but for me, I remember when the GH4 came out. Mm-hmm. 1080p, 96 frames per second. That was basically the highest frame rate you could get, and it was really good looking, and it really helped us get some really great shots. I mean, having that ability was very powerful. And I'm not sure why camera manufacturers were sort of remiss about adding in higher frame rates, because don't get me wrong, I do appreciate higher resolution, but I love that slow motion. And with this especially, I'm looking forward to doing so many more tests and experiments and getting to implement it. But it's been a long time coming. I mean, you think about it, this was not possible.
Yeah.
To what, 5 years ago, maybe? I mean, not in this form factor, definitely.
It wasn't, definitely not in that form factor. I would say it was not possible technology-wise probably about 5 years ago. I don't think it would have been possible for a camera manufacturer to say, we're giving you all these features up until probably about this year, you know? I mean, because that thing's got V-Log, it's got really high bit rates at 10-bit, it shoots 5.7K, 4K, 120p, and the list goes on and on and on. And we've seen how much manufacturers love to just hold on to their tech until they're like, all right, so now we've released this camera. Now let's finally implement this piece of tech in the next camera so that people have another reason to buy it.
Canon, we're talking about you, okay? Are you listening, Canon?
Get off of your cinema cameras. Nobody, like, the Canon cinema cameras are really good. They really are.
Yeah.
But they're not that good.
I mean, they're not $15,000 good.
Yeah. I was shooting with somebody.
You know.
Yeah.
You can't, I mean, $2,200?
Mm-hmm. I was consulting for a client the other day, and they were shooting on the Canon R5s. Really cool form factor cameras and everything. And it was a good step for Canon, especially with how much they've held off on some other stuff in the past. But you shoot 4K, and it crops in on that sensor. Like, it's bad. Because, I mean, if you want to shoot 1080p, if I'm not mistaken, that takes a lot larger sensor readout and then scales it down to 1080p. and then and then you shoot 4K, and it just punches in really, really far. I forget what the crop factor is. I think it was like 2.5. It was a deep crop factor. Don't quote me on that. It might have been different. But my whole thing is Canon just over and over again is doing things to protect their cinema line, whereas you have even Sony, who is far more accepted in the film industry and in cinema and everything in general. I mean, you've got the, you've got their Cine Alta line and everything like that, and they're just far more capable.
Yeah.
On the mirrorless level than Canon is. Canon does not make a capable mirrorless camera anymore that I would shoot proper video on.
No. I still think, and a lot of people I think agree, that there was the 1DX and then the 1DX Mark II. 1DX Mark II, very expensive camera body, but it was geared for video. File formats.
Well, that's the thing, is the 1DX and everything, I would say it was technically part of the cinema line. And they viewed it that way too, because it had C-Log and everything.
That is true, but if they really had wanted... if they really had wanted to do a lot with that camera, they could have given it a better... Because I think the format that it shot in was MPEG. I could have swore that is what the format it should have. You can look at it
like MPEG 2?
I don't know what it was, but it was huge, and it wasn't huge for any particular reason. It wasn't like it wasn't like shooting ProRes 422 or 422 HQ. It was just that was the only codec that they had that you could shoot higher resolutions in, and so your video files would be enormous, but they wouldn't necessarily be that much better in quality compared to what was coming out of the GH4.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, though, is and that's where I got to give it to Panasonic. One thing, too, we realized we have, 6 Panasonic cameras in this room, right?
Yeah, in this room, there are 6 Panasonic cameras. There are 3 that are operational, and then the other 4 are just sort of laying around.
Yeah. We have the S1H here. We have 2 GH5Ss shooting our side shots. There they are. And then we have the GH6 in his lap still. And then you have the GH4 encased in glass. And then
there's a G9.
G9 sitting on your desk. Yeah. And then I have another GH5S on my shelving. And then you have 1 or 2 other cameras back there.
I think we covered them all.
Yeah.
I think we covered them all.
But the point is, I'm a Blackmagic guy. I'm pretty diehard Blackmagic design almost everything for my pipeline. I use DaVinci Resolve as my editor. I love the Blackmagic Pocket 4K. And the next big camera upgrade that I really want to do probably is going to be an Ursa Mini Pro G2.
Yeah.
So because for me, you just can't really compete with Blackmagic sometimes when it just comes to the price to performance level.
No. 4K 120 B-roll.
Yeah. But with that being said, me as a Blackmagic guy, as somebody commented on the unboxing video, yes, I am a Blackmagic guy. Panasonic has done things just because they can, and I think it's really paying off for them, because a lot of people shoot professional video on Panasonic mirrorless cameras. And if they're going up to more like a cinema camera style, there's not that much from Panasonic. So they're going like Sony or Canon or something like that, or Blackmagic. But really the mirrorless video market is being pretty well handled by Panasonic and Sony.
Yeah.
And Panasonic has just sat right there with release after release, and that GH6 is a hot weighted 4 camera.
Oh yeah, and I'll say one thing when it comes to, as far as camera manufacturers go, because it is Panasonic and Sony. There are a lot of people concerned about the autofocus, but
and Sony wins that battle for sure.
No. Sony is going to dominate just pretty much every time. Even the A6300, like autofocus is great. Right?
Yeah, I've got the A6300, and I can't actually speak on the autofocus.
Oh, well,
yeah, I shoot all vintage lenses and stuff that does not have actual.
I've seen plenty of videos to prove that Sony is great at autofocus, but realistically, if you are doing professional video, you really don't need autofocus. And these cameras have never been good at autofocus. And so as far as that argument is concerned, I really wouldn't even concern yourself with it. If you're thinking about I'm stuttering right now. Picking one of these things up and getting into more professional video, autofocus, not that big of a deal.
Yeah,
It really
and
isn't.
like I haven't shot autofocus in. Whew, when was the last time I shot autofocus?
See, the last time I shot autofocus was in the XL2, and that autofocus was awful.
Yeah.
So we stopped. we stopped. We started figuring out how to manually focus our lenses.
Yeah, I'll have to bring it in for the show one day. But I had a old shoulder mount Sony 8mm tape camera, and that was pretty much my first camera shot VHS-C. It was a General Electric VHS-C camcorder. But my second one, which was really a big upgrade and was kind of what got me really going with video. That one was autofocus. Again, bad. But I'm trying to think of anything that I've shot autofocus since I've gotten into DSLR for sure. Because I mean, my Canon Vixia HFR 40. That one I had a long time ago, and that one was only autofocus. That's all you could do, and I think that's the only or the last time that I truly shot autofocus video. We're getting derailed, though. We got to get back on the high frame rate train. So 4K 120p on the GH6, and it got us thinking, you know, there's been a lot of attempts at high frame rate. Obviously, video games, the more the better. You know, everybody swears by, you know, 60p or higher. But for me, when it comes to video, anything higher than 30 it feels unnatural. It feels weird. And I get that. So there's a lot of things going on right now because, of course, Gen Zers, you know, I'm actually the last year of millennial. It's kind of funny, but you're a Gen Zer technically.
Yeah, I think I am. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. But you know,
Unfortunately.
but the Gen Z generation is a lot more of like played a lot of video games and done a lot more with high frame rate in general. So there's a lot of people wondering, like, when they start making all the decisions, will it start going more high frame rate? And there's been a lot more movies comparatively shot at high frame rate within the last, you know, decade than there has been pretty much in movie history, because 24 has reigned supreme forever. But now that we're actually getting to be able to shoot high frame rates and be able to add more light and shoot at higher ISOs and control everything a lot more easily, shoot at faster lenses and stuff, there's a lot of people wanting to do more high frame rate. And my thoughts on the subject is, if I'm shooting a movie, call me old school, I'm going 24. If I'm shooting commercial videography, I'm going 30 FPS. I've shot some 60p and I've tried playing it back and seeing what I thought about it, but it's too smooth. It's too good. And it's like, it doesn't feel right in any way for me to shoot at 60p.
Nah.
What do you think?
I mean, I agree wholeheartedly. It's what's called the soap opera effect.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you saw this, but whenever they announced Top Gun Maverick, Tom Cruise and Chris McQuarrie came out and put a video there, and what they were talking about is they put a video explaining to people how to turn off frame interpolation on their TVs.
Yeah.
Because modern TVs have a feature that is great for watching sports. Now, for watching sports, seeing everything in that great detail with that high frame rate, perfect. But
Yep.
for movies, when it starts trying to interpolate between 24 frames per second, it just looks bad.
It does.
Really looks awful. And they put a video out there explaining to people, hey, turn this off before you watch Top Gun Maverick.
Oh, yeah. Now, the thing is, though, that is artificially added frames.
It is artificial, but it still looks awful.
It still looks bad, and I don't think it's any better or worse than shooting actual high frame rate.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, high frame rate pretty much... We're not changing the game with our conversation here. And let's be honest. I mean, a lot of people agree with us that you kind of are going to stick with 24 for film, 30 for commercial work, and then 60 FPS is like you want to, if you shoot it, it's because you're going slow motion or something like that.
I mean, live, news, TV, all that sort of stuff. Correct me if I'm wrong. It is 60. Right?
It's 60i.
60i.
So it's interlaced frames, which essentially comes out to 30 FPS. It's 30 FPS progressive. It's 60i.
gotcha.
60 interlaced.
Okay.
But you can go. Filmmaker IQ has a wonderful video on this on the subject of frame rates and everything like that. And he's John Hess is a diehard 24 FPS guy. I've seen him get into some battles on social media. But the fact of the matter is 24 has remained dominant for so long. And so the history of 24, and I learned this from John Hess on Filmmaker IQ. Again, great video. Go watch it. Basically, we standardized at 24 because we had to pick a frame rate. But we had to pick a frame rate when we introduced sound. Because at that point, you've got to crank the camera consistently to get good, clean sound and everything. Because before that, everything was hand crank.
And it varied.
It varied. They would be going as low as 6 FPS and 12 FPS, and then they would start over cranking, and then, they found ways to get slow motion and stuff like that. But when you introduce sound into the mix, of course, you had to pick a frame rate. And everybody felt that 24 was a good compromise between smoothness and the amount of film that you use, basically. And I get that we don't have to deal with that anymore because today you just shoot video.
Yeah, it's digital. It's coming on an SD card.
Yeah. So it doesn't really matter, which frame rate you pick because conserving data is not as much of a concern for us these days. We don't have to worry about, how much film we're burning, but it still just looks bad. And there is the argument that it's what our brains are used to and what happens when we all get more used to 60 FPS and stuff like that. I get that argument. But I don't care.
No.
I like the look of 24 FPS. It's a filter between reality and what you're seeing on screen. Because I watch a movie to escape a little bit. I want to see something that's not real. And 24 is kind of like a nice filter for me to say, this is not real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it really, I've experimented with a couple of different frame rates. I know that in the beginning we didn't really know too much about frame rates. I mean, when I say the beginning, I'm talking about like 2007.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, literally at the very beginning of when we started doing videography, we shot everything at 60.
Yeah.
We just did because, we didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And that was great for what we were working on, but then we started to learn and started to experiment, and we actually changed the frame rate on our cameras there.
Now, was that 60p or 60i?
It's 60i.
Okay.
It was definitely 60i if it's going to mini DV cassette tapes. But right there near the tail end of our use of the XL2s, we swapped over to 24. We were blown away. It's like, wow, like that, like it's the perception of quality.
Mm-hmm.
Because every movie that's ever come out since, correct me if I'm wrong, but Thomas Edison, wasn't he the one that not necessarily invented it, but
I think it was Thomas Edison who actually standardized the frame rate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But like our brains have been so accustomed that when we see a movie and we've seen millions of dollars poured into it, that is the standard of quality.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the biggest part of it, really.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. You look at The Hobbit, you look at Gemini Man. A lot of the critiques was it felt like a made-for-TV movie. The Hobbit, how many millions of dollars was that to make?
Yeah.
It's at least 50 million, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Actually, I'm sure it was way past that. But it's like you're saying, yeah, it feels cheap. It does feel cheap to shoot at higher frame rate, which is hilarious. But that also comes back to the idea of that's what TV was, because 60i, it's not truly a 30p. I mean, because with interpolated frame, interlaced frames and all that kind of stuff, you do get some extra data, and it doesn't feel quite like 30p.
Well, it's 29.97.
Well, right, 29.97, and again, that goes back to the history of sound and actually color in television, because once they introduced color, I think they were shooting or they were broadcasting at a true frame rate, so 60p, 30p, or not p, but 30 or 60 FPS. I forget exactly what the exact numbers were they were shooting at. But then when they introduced color. Once they introduced color, they had a problem where it created interference in the signal. So what they had to do is just adjust it by I think it was 0.01% in frame rate. And then that cleaned it up. Again, we're getting off topic. But yeah, there is a perception of low quality when you're seeing high frame rate. And yes, that's what our brains have learned over time. That's what we've come to expect because of TV movies and all that kind of stuff. But my whole thing with it is that doesn't matter if that's what we've been taught to perceive over time. That's still what we perceive.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I like 24. I like 30p for commercial work. I'm not going to deliver at higher frame rates. Okay, so we're past perception and all that. Now, what about shooting high frame rates? I actually shoot 60 FPS constantly. When I go out on commercial shoots and everything, unless it's a talking headshot or something like that, I'm shooting pretty much 60 FPS because I never know when in post I say, I could use some slow motion here. Or if I'm wanting to deliver the entire thing as a slow motion piece because it's like for social media, like a social media clip or something like that. And you never know what you're going to capture on video. And you might have a moment that you're like, oh, rewind that. Let's see that again in slow motion.
Yeah.
So that's what I typically do is I shoot 60 FPS constantly because you just never know when you want to go slow motion and stuff. But what about you?
Well, I try to make a conscious effort to, like, I like to have the option of slowing things down.
Mm-hmm.
It's always great. But it really just depends on what I'm filming. Like, there's, for weddings typically, I do like to use a lot of slow motion. And it just, there's little things that really come into play. Like, you want to film the rings and, rings in and of themselves, they're static objects, that sort of thing, but you put a little bit of movement to it, you slow that movement down, and it really gives off, especially with these newer cameras, with as great image stabilization that they've got with the IBIS and everything, you can get a really high quality shot handheld in slow motion that looks like it was shot on I don't know even how expensive those dollies are with the not to mention the movie setup or the gimbals or the what is it where they have the motorized sliders, anything that involves controlled movement for so long has been so difficult to get because with the GH4 4K 24 frames per second, that was pretty much all you could do. It was the highest quality, but there was no IBIS.
Yeah.
There was no image stabilization. So if you wanted to get a smooth shot, you had to put on a Steadicam. They didn't even have gimbals, I don't think, when the GH4 came out. If they had gimbals, they were like the very, very first ones, and they were terrible.
Yeah.
I had one, and it was bad.
Yeah, I got the Zuntech Crane V2. That was my first gimbal that I shot on, and it was also the first gimbal that I owned. I actually shot on it before I owned it. I shot on it and then I bought one because I liked it. But then after I shot with it for a few months, I hated it. And what I actually did prefer, and this is another reason why I do shoot 60p, is I would prefer doing my own little like handheld rock to the side at 60 FPS, and then I slow it down to half speed, and it looks nice and smooth. I like shooting like that, and it works well, especially with some run and gun stuff. Because sometimes in the commercial videography world where I live, you do have to do some things very run and gun, and you don't like it. You would prefer putting down a dolly track and everything.
Oh yeah.
Which that's one thing too. Like if we're talking about getting smooth shots, a dolly track is my favorite way to go still. You can go gimbal, you can go all this stuff, but I just can't get past a dolly.
No. The reality is with the technology that's available to us, with the high frame rate options that we have, with as good as image stabilization as we have, when I'm at a wedding, I'm normally going handheld. Why? Because I have IBIS.
Yeah.
I have a sensor that's stabilized, and then I'm shooting at a higher frame rate, and so those two combined it's just the magic combo. It's the magic combo for run and gun, getting great high quality, beautiful cinematic footage without having to break the bank, without having to go out and rig this thing up on a Steadicam. We have a Steadicam in the studio, and it's great. But
yeah, we're talking full vest Steadicam. We're not talking
it's
handheld.
not a glide cam. It's got the vest, it's got the arm, it's got the sled, it's got everything with it. But with that being said, it's not only is it terribly heavy, but what a gimbal is good at is what the Steadicam's weaknesses are in, basically.
Yeah.
So gimbal's greatest weakness is the up and down when you're walking straight. Steadicam takes care of that because it's got a giant mechanical arm that's canceling out all of that movement.
Well, that's why it's still used, and it hasn't just all gone gimbal.
Exactly. Well,
it's going gimbal a lot.
Well, they put a gimbal on a Steadicam, and that's just like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's like the ultimate combo.
Yeah.
Because then you can take out the up and down movement and everything. You basically, I can't remember what Arri came up with, but it's some crazy expensive rig that it's like boom, jib, dolly, everything in one.
That, I think, was actually first used as well on 1917.
Oh, yeah.
If I recall correctly. Because I think they developed it... I can't remember if they developed it for the movie or if that was just the first one that used it to a major degree.
Yeah.
But I know that they used it on 1917, and a part of that was because they were able to then get extremely smooth shots. And when you're talking about a one-shot movie, you gotta do that.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, cool. We have not talked about high frame rate as much as we...
We've talked about a lot of other things.
We've talked about a lot of other things.
As far as that goes, I'm looking forward to playing more with this 4K 120, seeing where I use it, where I don't use it.
Yep.
It's a great feature to have, and I'm looking forward to getting to experiment with it.
Oh yeah. Well, and shooting 120, you're able to get 20% speed. For really smooth slow motion. We can get some really cool like product shots and commercial shots and all that kind of stuff with it. And then if we're shooting 30p, we can go 25% speed. So that's really cool to see. And so yeah, that camera, we're going to be coming out with a more full proper review for it. Definitely go watch the unboxing as the first piece to the puzzle, but no, it's a really cool camera, and to be able to shoot 120 FPS is astounding. Tell you what, closing thoughts on shooting high frame rates and watching high frame rates.
Well, watching it, I don't know. It's the jury's still out on that one. I mean, it might change, but I don't think it's changing anytime soon. At least for major motion pictures, because like you said, the standard is still there. But as far as shooting it, I mean, heck, go all out. I mean, Sony and Canon both have introduced, I think Sony with the A7S III 4K 120 full frame. That's their headline feature for the Sony. Not to mention the crazy low light, which you really need when you're shooting higher frame rates, because you got to have more light hit the sensor and that sort of thing. 4K 120 on the Micro Four Thirds, which I didn't think was actually possible, really, because with the size of the sensor, I mean, it's about the size of a postage stamp, maybe even smaller. But shooting high frame rates is just the greatest thing. I would highly recommend if you can get a great 1080p camera shooting 60, like, because they're out there.
Yeah.
I don't have any right off the top of my head, but I know that I shot 1080p on the GH5, and it could go up to 120, I think.
In 1080p, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that right there is a great asset to have.
Yeah.
It's a great 1080p image.
I mean, when you can have a camera that shoots higher frame rate, it's just kind of like our dynamic range discussion last week. If you can get a better dynamic range, you might as well go for it.
If you can get it, you get it.
Yeah. But it's not necessarily something to break the bank about.
It's not going to make your film better.
Right.
It's not like with film, the narrative. It's all about the story, and it's all about how your cinematography, how your lighting, how that all benefits story.
Yes.
But like if you're doing commercial stuff, you're doing weddings, get that high frame rate camera.
Yes. Truthfully, I would break the bank more probably for high frame rate though than I would dynamic range.
Yeah.
Because if I like serving the purpose of the story, war films and even sci-fis and stuff like that, so many great moments are made with slow motion.
Oh yeah.
And it really can tell a story in and of itself when you're able to see everything happening at an unreal time.
Yeah.
I would break the bank more for high frame rate, basically at higher resolutions than I would for probably dynamic range.
Yeah.
Because once you get to 12 to 13 stops dynamic range, it's pretty good.
Yeah, and I mean, in this camera, it has a feature called Dynamic Range Boost. And I've seen some videos about it. It looks great, but it is only available up to, I think, 4K at 30 frames per second. And at that point, the reality is if you're if you really want to have a high frame rate image or a high dynamic range image, and put it into post, you can achieve that if you shoot one shot on a tripod, underexposed, another shot overexposed, and blend them two together.
Yeah.
You can do that with just about any camera that has manual exposure control and get a similar effect.
Yes.
If that's what you want. Now, if you're handheld, you just forget about it.
Yeah. Okay, so my closing thoughts on shooting high frame rate. If you can, do it, and it definitely serves purposes mainly for slow motion purposes. When it comes to delivering when it comes to delivering high frame rate, yeah, I'm not doing that.
No.
I'm never going to say never, but I don't think I will make the choice myself. A client might make the choice, but I don't think I'll ever make the choice myself to deliver something above 30 FPS.
Yeah.
And that pretty much, I think, is a good way to close out the high frame rate discussion.
Yeah.
So like anything with this I keep saying podcast, but with this stream, we're at least kicking off a conversation, and whoever is my co-host, and if I'm ever out and Jesse has a co-host or something like that, we just want to at least have a discussion.
I never want to sit in this chair. I'm just going to put that out there. I like to be over here calmly sitting, just getting to sort of, throw in my 2 cents every once in a while.
Yeah, well, there we go. But no, we love having you on this show.
Well, thank you.
Woo, hitting my mic. All right, so woes of the week. You have one. What is that?
Well, I'm working on my feature film, and I made the choice to pretty much ADR. I would say at this point, 85% of it is going to be ADR.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. ADR, having the ability to get great, clean, crisp audio from your actors, getting their performances captured perfectly. It's all great. It's great for mixing. It's great for using it in trailers, all that sort of stuff. But it's a lot of work. And most of what I've been doing is just preparing videos so that when my actors come in, they can sit there and watch themselves perform.
Yes.
And then match the performance or improve upon it.
And you're doing something I love where you are actually, like you said, you're preparing the video. And what you mean by that is you are actually rendering out sections of the movie where you have in-camera audio and stuff like that. And then you're putting their lines on screen so it makes it easy for them to actually read their lines and see their performance at the same time. And
Exactly.
I think it works really well from what I've seen.
Well, thank you. I mean, the way I looked at it, because I've done ADR in the past, and what it was is, okay, we have them. There was one time we had actors in the studio, and I think that they were there for 5 or 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And the scene in of itself was not that long.
Yeah.
Talk about a 5-minute long scene. It's not a long scene in the course of a feature-length film, but we were there because what was happening is I kept, looping this one section of video and audio, and number one, unless you're, Robert Patterson,
Mm-hmm.
unless you're a A-list actor, sometimes actors don't say what's on the script verbatim. Sometimes they change it up. And I would actually encourage actors to do that, but what I'm doing is taking whatever they said on set, typing it out in text form, putting it on the video, so not only can they see themselves speaking the words, they can read the lines and not have to get so bunged up with, okay, well, what did I say? Or literally what they said is right on the screen, and I put it in a loop so that they can just sit there and say it as many times as they want to. And then they can change the inflection or anything. I ask that they keep the timing, but they can change their performance and how they enunciate or that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I've seen the examples of you actually having completed ADR and it placed in the movie, and unless you're jumping back and forth between the microphone on set and the ADR, you can't really tell a difference.
Well, and there's one particular actor, all of his lines are ADR, every single one of them. And at this point, I've gotten about 70 lines done.
Wow.
70. And I'm only halfway through the movie.
Oh, man.
So that's 70 little video clips.
Yeah.
But the way it's been working, I had an actor come in, and she had, I think, 40 lines.
Mm-hmm.
But we pretty much were able to knock it out in about 40 to 45 minutes. And if you and this is for all of our lines in the whole movie.
Wow.
So if you compare that to taking 1 5-minute scene and taking 6 hours to do that, not only is it faster, more efficient, but it also, I think, puts a lot less strain on the actors as well. And they can just focus on their timing. They can focus on their pronunciation. They can just put their mind at ease when it comes to getting this ADR, because I've had some actors tell me some horror stories about ADR, and I've seen a lot of bad ADR.
Well, I'll tell you this. You've kind of been getting a process down for ADR. You've been getting really good at it through the process of making Rancor and a couple other little side projects.
Well, thank you.
And what I really think we need to do is we do need to do a full video for everybody, because some of the tips that you have and just some of your technique in getting ADR works really well. It works really well, and I think that we definitely need to do a full video so that we can show people from start to finish what good ADR can do and what bad ADR
Well, one
can
thing
do.
that I would definitely like to do is get a little farther along. There's going to be a certain point at which I'll have enough ADR done to where I'll be able to make a trailer for the film, and then when that trailer is released, then everybody watching can be the judge of it for themselves. But I think that they'll be pleasantly surprised at at how good it looks. And the thing with ADR, you know, it is a great thing, but the worst part about it, because when you've got that clean, crisp audio coming out of those microphones, you have to dumb it down, because the reality is everybody that you speak to, especially if you're filming and the scene is taking place in a downtown, you got to add in ambient noises. You got to add in cars. You got to add in, you know, police sirens. You know, you got to add this stuff. You got to dirty it up. Mm-hmm. That's probably going to be. And I haven't gotten to that point yet. I'm not looking forward to that, because dirtying up really great audio has always been sort of just like, you have to do it, but I don't like to do it.
Yeah, and it's kind of like shooting log. Like one thing that I always have an issue with is crushing shadows when it comes to color grading log. Yeah, because when I'm looking at it, I've got so much dynamic range and everything that I literally am like, I don't want to lose that detail. No. Like, you're looking at the original shot, I'm like, I can see in that shadow, I can see underneath that tree. But then when you look at most, you know, color grades, and then like the color grade that you actually know that you want, you can't see anything in that shadow. So you're like, okay, well, I've got to sacrifice this shot in the color grade. And it's the same thing with dirtying up audio. You have really clean audio, but then you're like, you start messing it up and you're like, well, it sounds worse. Well, that's what you want. But it just feels wrong because you've got the clean audio and you know what it's like.
Well, yeah, and you know, it's like I said, doing ADR is great, because not only do you get that clean audio, because you want that clean audio for trailers. You want it for previews, for teaser trailers, for the stuff that's going to go out there to catch people's eye so that they'll come watch your movie. You want to have that, because I'll see some trailers every once in a while, and I'll hear a piece of audio. It's like, I bet they captured that on set or something like that. And typically... and I didn't really realize this about trailers. Most trailers are being put out there before the movie is edited, which that makes perfect sense from a marketing standpoint. What bothers me about that is, and I'm not going to go off on a big tangent, but I really hate in trailers when they have a shot in the trailer that's not in the movie. I'm going to stop there because I go on about that. But
yeah, and that's actually what I was going to say. Is it's a lot of fun to go find like compilations, basically, where they have all these different movie trailers and shots that didn't actually make it into the movie. It's really funny. Yeah, and it's to me, it's like false advertising. But like I said, I gotta stop because it's not that big of a deal. Yeah, we're getting off track. We've closed up the high frame rate discussion, and we're talking about movies, like just movies. So let's go into our movie recommendations. Oh wait, my woe of the week. I'll make this one quick. My woe of the week is getting out of practice. I realized I was doing a client job this week, and I needed to make some little gold coins flip up in the air for St. Patrick's Day. Oh, happy St. Patrick's Day, by the way, everybody. And it was for a St. Patrick's Day video. And then I realized I forgot some of these basic tools to do some physics simulations, because I was going to basically smack it with a plane inside of Blender, and then the coins are going to flip up in the air. And it was going to be just kind of like a little bit of coins shooting out of a pot of gold. Yeah. And, I forgot about static objects and stuff like that when creating physics and everything. And it just reminded me, like, I was a big Blender nut, and I still am. I love Blender. But then what I realized is, in my past few years with corporate video and everything, and working in television, you start having to do the same thing over and over again. You start using the same techniques, same tools, everything like that. And then it's a good reminder, though, to always go back to something, at least for a little while, at least just to play, and get caught back up on how to use something. My dad actually flew in the Army and is still an instructor pilot and everything. And they do something called check rides. And basically what that is you go out and you fly periodically with somebody just to ensure that you're still up to snuff. And it's kind of the same thing with video and visual effects and everything like that. Like I live in DaVinci Resolve constantly, but since I switched my pipeline from pretty much all Blender, I mean, I used to do like all of my visual effects in Blender, CGI, 2D compositing, and then mixing that CGI in with my 2D compositing, everything. I did everything in Blender, to the point I even video edited at one point in Blender. That was my main NLE. But then once I switched to DaVinci Resolve, I had Fusion and I had all this other stuff. And now my pipeline is completely different. And I got completely out of practice with Blender. I needed to use it for something. And now I'm like, where was that tool again? Especially with Blender and how they've changed things over the last few years. But anyway, that's my woe of the week. Just remember to always go back, and if there's a software you haven't used for a long time, if there's a technique you haven't done for a long time, just go play. Have some fun in the evening. If you've got a light workload, pull out some old software, pull out an old camera, pull out some old lighting.
Go grab yourself a box of Cheez-Its while you're at it as well.
Yeah, we've got that's a little thing that we're probably going to show in the GH6 review, talking about slow motion. But yeah, just get yourself back in practice if it's been a while with some of the stuff. So that is my woe of the week. So now let's go ahead and do our movie recommendation. So Jesse, what is your movie recommendation of the week?
The Accountant with Ben Affleck and Anna Kendrick.
Okay, so
yes.
Tell us a little bit more about it. Why are you... Whoa, that's covering you up. Why are you recommending The Accountant?
There's a few movies that I have that... now, I should be careful how I say this, because not everybody's going to think that this is one of the greatest movies ever made. Mm-hmm. And I do agree that there are better movies, but there are some movies that there's certain moments that occur and it just makes you smile.
Yeah.
And there's so many moments that happen like that in The Accountant. And so it's one of those movies, I have not watched it intentionally because I don't want those moments to get old.
Right.
I still, I'll go years. And it's been out for a while. I can't remember exactly what year it came out, but it's been out for long enough.
I want to say it was 2017, 2016.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. I think I've seen it twice.
Okay.
Twice. And I wait in between when I watch it because I want those moments to still sort of... It's almost like seeing it in the theater for the first time. Because you can't remember everything that happened in the movie. Yeah. Granted, there's a lot of great moments. And Ben Affleck is a phenomenal actor, and he does a great job. So does Anna Kendrick, everybody, and John Lithgow. I forgot John Lithgow's actually the bad guy, which is funny. I mean, because the only thing that
I forgot about that.
The only thing I ever saw him in was Third Rock from the Sun.
Yeah,
and he's the bad guy, and it really shows off his talent as an actor as well. And so it's just a very, very entertaining movie for me. Yeah, and I would encourage anyone who hasn't seen it to go pick it up somewhere. Yeah,
that's kind of like me though, like holding off to watch it again. I did that with Vertigo because when I first watched Vertigo, it blew my mind so much. You can see the poster back there, but it blew my mind so much that I was like, I don't know if I ever want to watch this movie again because I don't want to lose that shock at the big reveal at the end. If you haven't seen the movie, highly recommend you go watch it. But that's not my movie recommendation of the week. Another one that I kind of do avoid watching too much because I love it so much, that would be Baby Driver. Mm-hmm. Baby Driver was an Edgar Wright movie, is an Edgar Wright movie. Really good film. Ansel Elgort did a fantastic job leading off the cast. Really a great cast. I mean, you've got... I'm trying to remember. I've got it up on screen. I mean, you've got Kevin Spacey.
The Punisher's in it. I can't remember his... I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's John
Bernthal.
Yeah, that guy.
Great actors, but really a great movie. And the timing between the car chases and the music, it just all works so well.
Oh yeah.
Edgar Wright is a master of that kind of a film, and if you have not seen Baby Driver, I highly recommend that you go watch this movie, because it's I wouldn't say it's in my top 10 favorites, but it's up there. It is a very good movie, and I highly recommend you go watch it. So that is my movie suggestion of the week. So that wraps up our lists of everything that we had to discuss today, our rundown. We thank you all so much for watching, and we do apologize for the apparel today. T-shirts and basketball shorts.
Yeah, we didn't have any meetings today.
Yeah, we're in the office, and we were like, which, by the way, we will be doing an office tour coming up soon. That's going to be a lot of fun to show you guys. But no, we were in the office today, and we were like, we don't have any meetings. I don't have to go to any shoots. I just got to sit back and edit. So I'm relaxing in some basketball shorts and a T-shirt.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that explains our apparel of today. But no, we got a little bit more set up today. We got camera 3, 2, and 1. So no, we're a little bit more properly set up, and this is the way we kind of want to do things a little bit more going forward. But thank you guys. We had a couple people jump into the chat and give some really good feedback, and also thank you for let me see. Thank you, L.E. Munoz. Sorry if I'm butchering that, but thank you for letting us know about the audio. But no, that wraps it up for this week. Again, GH6 review is coming out. If you haven't watched the GH6 unboxing, go watch that. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I started to say subscribe first, and I'm like, that's out of order. But yeah, like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you guys with more content coming very soon. And like I said, Premiere Prep is back, and we're going to be having, let me see, studio tour, all kinds of cool stuff coming up on the channel soon. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you, Jesse, for joining me again today.
Glad to be here.
And we'll be having more hosts on soon, co-hosts and everything like that. We're going to have some virtual ones coming up soon, even somebody who is a colorist for U.S. military contracts. That would be really cool. And, of course, one of our contractors, Shantae Stevens, amazing person to work with and stuff. So I can't wait to have some more people on this podcast. Broadcast. You know what I mean. We're going on far too long. Anyway, remember to live your life one frame at a time, and I will catch you next time. Oh, man, I forgot to load in the end slate. We're going back to just standby.
Oh.
We'll catch you next time, guys.